um, your next part of your project. Now you'll notice you would have already created a base class and you would have created a manager to manage that class. One thing I'm going to suggest to you is in your guys' exams you aren't allowed to use this, but for your PAT you can use this. And for your the reason why I'm teaching you this is because it does allow for unlimited number of elements in your array. So instead of actually just creating an array of the item, you'll create what's called an array list, which you don't spell like that. Now, for your array list, you'll see that it's got triangle brackets there in E. And literally what it does is whatever it is in there. So if I go array list puppy, I'm creating an array of puppies of unlimited size. So it no longer... Thank you. Good reminding. Okay, so you'll see there that my array list is just showing that I've got an array list of the class puppy, and it's going to be called puppies. And what this does is it literally creates an unlimited size. Now remember I talked to you that a string was a list where one point of the list will point to the next point of the list, which will point to the next point of the list. An array list just makes you be able to use an array of a list like an array. So it kind of gives you both. Does that make sense? The advantages of an array and the advantages of that. So technically it's just a class with a list in it with some methods to help you do stuff. So it still deals with it like a list, but it has methods that allow you to use it as though it was. And whatever you put in the triangle brackets here is what class type or object type that is going to be. And in this case it's going to be a puppy. Does that make sense? And I'll go through it in the constructor and stuff on how to work with that more specifically. So we also don't need a counter anymore because this keeps track of it. There's unlimited size. There's no limit to the length that it is. But as I say, only PAT, not for your exams. Exams you cannot use an array list. Does that make sense? Over here we now want to add to our array. So what we can do is we go to our array list, which is called puppies. Now if you take a look, if we go puppies and we now go dot, you'll see there's an option of saying add. So dot add would literally just add a new puppy to it and increment, or add one onto the end. Does that make sense? In actually when you're dealing with lists directly, it's often like a dot push or something like that, which just adds on to the list. But yeah, in this case you just go dot add. You'll then go new puppy, and you would send through fields that you would want. And you wouldn't need to do any plus or anything like that. But as I said, for exams you don't do that. You're not allowed to use this because then it doesn't show that you understand the concept of arrays at all, because now you're just basically using someone else's class that they created and not doing anything useful or not showing any understanding even. Does that make sense? So now we actually have to read from the text file, and we'll just run the add puppy method, and that will just add it onto the array list. Just for sake here, this part we had a character for the gender, not a normal item. So what we did is there's no such thing as a .next char. So you just go .next and you just get character at 0. If you know it's going to be a character, it will just then return the character at position 0 there. So that's how you would get a single character from a text file. Now we're going to work with how to work with the toString of our when we've got an array list instead of just a normal array. So on this toString, what you would do is it's the same concept. You would create a blank string and you'd return that blank string. Now inside this you'll now loop through the item, and how you would do that is you would go for a tab, and now instead of array.length, all you would do is you would say puppies, which is the dot size. So you see there, then that will get the length of the array, so it'll loop through the length of the array from 0 to the size of how many puppies have actually been added. You would then just go s_all plus equals puppies dot get at position I dot toString, and then with the \n at the end. So it's actually very easy to use an array list. You just, instead of use square brackets, you just use dot get, and you would say the position. So for a PAT, it's a good idea to use an array list. But for exams or things like that, you would use an array. It's just to show that you actually know how to do sorts and those kind of things. Like for example, you'll see for puppies, there's a method even though I can just go puppies dot sort, and you could say you could even specify by which operator inside that and how the comparator works and blah 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 between puppies. Well, also in a test, guess how much you'll get for using an array list? 0. Because you're using
Using someone else's external method,
yeah.
you're not problem solving yourself.
Yes. Yes, but still, who needs to know how to problem solve? Okay, I'll show you a little bit more advanced GUI. We're going to create a basic frame here to allow us to view them, perhaps without the sorting and that kind of stuff. But I'm going to start by changing the layouts, and the first layout I'm going to work with is a border layout. And I know I created another video of this that I asked you guys to watch at a earlier stage, but it's fine. If you put the panel at the bottom, it's now this one will not resize, or will stay the size that it wants to. And I'm going to put a text area at the top. So the main area is going to be a text area. And at the bottom I'm wanting a button. I'm going to make it a set layout. I'm going to make it a grid layout. And I'm going to make the grid layout you'll see when you design it and it goes too small, you just double click on the panel you want to make it bigger, and you can just make that bigger. And this grid layout, I'm going to set 4 columns by 1 row. And what that means is that the layout will be broken into 4 columns. So now when I add buttons, you'll see it'll add it incrementally like that.
Nice.
Okay. And you could add various different options in here. In this case, all I'm wanting is I'm going to have add puppy display all. Then I'll have a filter puppy, whatever. And then I'm going to have a what is it? Sort puppy. Okay. So now, in this case, so now if I go back to my frame, we'll take a look at my frame. It's got the main frame area which I'll display it. I'm going to change this variable to txt display. Anything that you're going to have to communicate with in code, I would suggest you name. I wouldn't suggest naming everything, because to name every single grid layout, etc., it's a bit challenging. So in this case, when I click on display all, I want it to display all, and technically defaultly when I run it, I want to. So inside here, okay, I'm going to pause again. We're just creating the instance and that kind of thing. So we're going to create our puppy manager, and we'll call him pman. Semicolon. We'll initialize them in here, because remember the exception is thrown, so we need to be able to catch that exception. Is equal to new puppy manager, and inside this we now want to actually surround that with the try catch. And now in here we could go zoom in. Okay, now on from that, we've got the new puppy now. We would then want to create a method called display all. And on that method display all we would do is we would do private void and on display all we'll just go txt display.setText, and we'll just set it to pman.toString. Done. You guys get that? Now let's just check if this works, and let's also code the display all button to actually work. So all we'll do is we'll double click on it all. Remember, there's a lot of different events that could occur. There are different action listeners to listen to what the user's doing with this GUI element. And there are various different action listeners. And the main one is action performed, which means the user could have tabbed to it, pressed space while the user could have clicked on it. The idea is a major activating action took place, but it doesn't specify exactly what. And that's the default. If you double click on it, it will defaultly add that kind of listener. But you'll check there's also a listener for like an idea of a key pressed while the focus is on it, various different things. I'd be a little bit nervous about using key pressed, because the focus has to be on that element for it to listen to that. So for example, if your frame is always going to have focus, and Nick, I'm recording this so you can, oh, you've finished. Okay. So be careful of key listener. Like you need to design your frame properly, like to make sure that it's got the focus. If you're doing key listeners. Anyway, so my display all button will work now, and this program should at least run and show us the actual thing from the list. That's happening there. So there we go. Its list is there. Now you'll notice here it's a little bit annoying because it doesn't. Okay, I would have wanted an enter between the various different animals as well. But you'll notice that also there's the frame was not open big enough. There's a couple of ways to fix this. One, on your frame you can set the extended state to 6. If you set the extended state to 6 and you run it, you'll notice that it will immediately just go bam, full screen, which is quite big. And obviously in our Puppy Manager, if we wanted a line between them, we would just add an extra backslash in here, and that would work with that. So in your GUI, if you go to your frame and you set extended state to 6, that will set it up as being maximized. But what you could also do is, if you know you don't want this frame to get smaller than a certain size, for example, let's say this size, to change you'll see this size is 495 by 515, roughly. So if I go down to minimum size, that's maximum size, minimum size, I would suggest then just setting this to, I would even go 800 by 600, or some size that you would believe would be a good minimum size that you'd want your frame to be. I'm glad that happened. You know why that happened? It's because it actually didn't save this properly. So you must make sure when it runs, it doesn't automatically save some of your extra stuff that you've done on your GUI components. That is a little bit of a glitch with Java. When you press play, it does save all your code, but it doesn't always save all your GUI changes. So you'll see there, if it doesn't work, now it worked. Now it's got a minimum size, and I'm not able to resize it any smaller. I can resize it bigger, but I can't resize it smaller. Does that make sense? So you can just set a minimum size to it. You also got the option to allow the user not to be able to resize it and that kind of thing. But yeah. Okay, so we've got now our things being displayed, but now comes the next element of your project that you're going to be doing this term. That's basically what you've had from last term or last year. Does that make sense? Now we want to make the whole add a puppy, and we want to be able to add. You guys added it to the array, but you didn't add it to the text file. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go to our Google Share, the share that I've set up for you guys.
You're recording, so.
Yeah, I'm recording. And inside your Google Share, you'll see under there code segments. There's a code segments called writing to a file, and this literally just shows you how to write to a file. But there's also another code segment called filing. Now this perhaps is a little bit longer, but there is a whole various different code. This was created by David Oakley, and I just must used it from there, but he sort of added this to it. And I'm happy for you guys to go, okay, I want to create something called a storage manager. So I go Control A, copy. I then go to my class. I go create new file, Java class. Actually, I'm in the wrong spot. Let me just make sure I'm creating it in the right. Ignore that prank folder. I should actually stop it from running as well. Close it. Right, so now inside my class, I'm going to create a new Java class called Storage Manager, and its job is just to manage the storage. And literally, I'm just going to go Control A. Actually, I like, so the package might be different, so I'm going to only just do it for the class and copy that over. And you'll see there that now all of this. Did he have an error in his? Actually, he didn't need a return here because he had a return at the bottom here, so it would return over here. Okay, I don't know why he actually coded that. And he's got a missing curly bracket here. It says missing return statement. Okay, because there's a try catch. So here he would need to have, if it's called return false. Okay, semicolon. Alright, so
Seems legit.
okay, it looks like that when he created this, there are a couple of issues. So I'm just going to fix them now and then put them into that file so that there's none of these issues were there. I'm sure it was just a matter of a version issue. Boolean B delete F. So you should have a method called delete F, which is delete file. So I'm assuming he meant it was delete file. F, and F is a file F. String folder directory. Huh. Okay, so that's why he had a delete F, but the delete F doesn't exist here. Okay, cool. Sorry about this. I'll quickly fix this in Control C. No, let's create a folder. Where's the deleter folder? Delete file. So all I'm doing is I'm creating him a delete F, and this is just going to receive through a file target. I'm getting rid of the I'm getting rid of some of the text messages to show that it's there, but anyway, being lazy. Alright, I actually had that recorded, my bad. Okay, now, okay, so now the David's class is, it's probably, his was designed, completed, was working, it's just obviously versions or whatever went wrong. Now we've got the storage manager that we can work with. Now inside my puppy manager, the one that's managing my puppies, I would create an instance of my storage manager. So I'm going to storage manager SM storage manager semicolon, and then I'm going to. Fair enough, I don't think he's designed it so it actually needs a. All of them are static. They're all static, so you don't even actually need to create an instance of it. So ignore me on that. He created them so they're all static. So now whenever you add a puppy, you also might want to add it to the text file. So in this case, we've got add puppy, and this is, I would actually make this private because this is going to add a puppy just to my array. It's going to read it from the text file and add it to the array. Does this make sense? I'm going to create another method now called public. This one's going to be public, and I'm going to call it void add puppy to add. I'm going to say add new puppy because now this puppy didn't exist. This is what the user is going to want to add another puppy into the array. Right? Now it's going to require the exact same stuff as this. So I'm even just going to copy and paste this because it requires the exact same stuff. So copy paste. Now, and you will have to add it to the array. But now beyond just adding it to the array, we also want to add it to the text file, right? So what we need to do is we need to just, all we need to do is just go storage manager dot okay, you'll see here it says string file directory, string overwrite message. There's an option here of going write file, read file, overwrite file. Now write file, and we need to add Java documentation. Okay, I'll create one with the Java documentation to this. The big thing here is we know that it's called puppies.txt. Okay, and I want to add to it this puppy, and which will have the name. Let me actually create this. How do we separate each field? With a hash. So we literally generate the actual puppy. Am you following me? And then name, breed, plus a hash, and then it's, what is it? Oh, you know what I've done? I've credited the wrong person for this. It was a Darren made this. Sorry, I apologize for now.
You're welcome, YouTube.
And Darren made the storage manager class. David did networking with the SQL side. Anyway, sorry.
You also for the next one with data flow.
Thank you, Dob. What's the next one? So you're just basically appending all of them together so that they get that. Then gender, and then cool. Okay. So after you've got that, then you'll just say equals puppy. Now what this does.
Shouldn't you do plus near line set?
No. As far as I'm aware, he should have done that inside his storage manager. When Darren created it, he would have done that here, maybe. Let's take a look at where he wrote the right. I might as well go through this with you. You don't have to code this yourself. Write to file. You'll see there it creates a new print stream to write to the file. Now this part here where it says true determines whether or not it's going to append or overwrite. If this is false, it will overwrite the file. So in other words, the file everything will be deleted and the new stuff will be created on there. Does that make sense? Now I haven't tested his items here. Now, but you see when you print, okay, he did a fdr.print, but now as far as I'm aware, you can do a print line, which will mean it'll add the message and add an answer at the end. So instead of doing a dot print, you do a print line and then it puts the answer in properly. And it makes it a bit better than writing with the \n, because that's a sort of a more Java specifically with a file. If you can print line, it will more directly with the stream add the line. So that's where I would have done it here. Does that make sense? But I'll make sure that this storage manager is a bit more well designed so the way we're going to be using it. And, so now that will write the file to it. Now I'm not completely convinced that that definitely this is the one that's not going to override it. So just for safety's sake, I'm going to copy my puppies, back up my puppies, because I don't want to lose my puppies if we do accidentally override it. Because remember, once you do something, there's no Control Z in programming. So if you overwrite all your puppies, it's gone. So just be careful. So before you run something like that. Anyway, so my add puppies, my method now add new puppy will add it to the array and then write it to the file. Do you guys get that? So all I've done is I've used somebody else's class, and I can then just send through which file I'm working with and what I'm sending through to it. Does that make sense? Moving on from there, I'm going to go to my my GUI now, and I'm going to code my add puppy method. And to do that, I'm actually wanting to create another frame. So from Java Swing menus, I want to add another frame, and this frame I'm going to call frm puppy. Now on this frame puppy, I want to create the string name. So I'm going to first come up with a basic design of this, of how you plan on actually doing it. Now I would want to know the name of the puppy. What else? The name. What else do I want to know? Breed. Dog.
Gender.
Sorry?
Gender.
Gender, okay. Gender. Now, and technically I could also have, like, for example, gender as a, I would have gender there, and then weight here. So I don't have to stick to the exact same layout all the way. Like, name might be longer, it might be longer. So I want to sort of make it a bit more, so I have name it, then ask for the name. Breed, then ask the breed. Do I want the text box next to it, or do I want it under it, or how do you want it?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, I'm going to do this very randomly because I'm bored and I feel like it. Alright, I'm going to create this as being, how many rows do we have here? 4 rows, right? And then, yeah, cool, 4 rows. So let's go
Even circuits for in class.
set layout. Columns, I want 1 columns, I want 4 rows. And I'm just literally going to put my 4 panels in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got my layout of my 4 panels. My first panel, I'm wanting to put my name and the actual name next to it. So this is going to have, and I'm going to show you a slightly different way of doing it because I can. I want to create a border, and the border is going to be a text title border, and the title of the border is going to be name. So it will say name, and then in here I can just have the user filling in a text area with the name in it. You know, one big thing that I did forget about. I need to make this with more grids. The reason why is I need my grid layout to be 5 rows because I need a button column as well to be able to show. So I need a panel that will allow me to add the buttons. And I'm going to set this layout to be grid layout 1 by 1. So that the user will enter the name. Breed. I'm going to show you something slightly differently here as well. I'm going to show you a combo box. Now in a combo box, because quite frankly we don't want the users just to be able to choose every single possible breed in the sun. We want to limit them to certain valuable breeds. What you could do is in your model you could go, okay, we've got a Labrador.
T-Rex.
I think it was a comma, T-Rex, comma, German Shepherd, comma, pug, cannot forget the pug,
Bulldog.
bulldog.
Black Mamba.
No, I'm not gonna just like, I think that's enough for now. I'm gonna leave that. Alright, now in this one we're wanting it to be slightly different because we're wanting the date. Now interestingly enough, you'll see that I've got an option here of a JYear chooser, but it's not working currently because my plugin moved. Because I added a plugin that allowed me to add a calendar list item, and now that plugin is obviously pointing to the wrong spot. And you'll go to their plugins, and you'll see the plugins. I've got one there called there's an option here, add plugins, and I'm going to. You'll see under your guys' share drive. under Google Share, IT General Resources, plugins. No. There's a, damn it. Okay, somewhere here, I have a JCalendar plugin. That's probably why I don't actually have it anymore. Free applications, IT software, plugins, JCalendar. Okay, let me copy this across as well to the other location. But the JCalendar is literally just allows you to have calendar entries, like where you can go choose a date from a calendar entry. So you can look for things like that, add GUI elements to your NetBeans, and when you go run, clean, and build, it will add that .jar to your build there. But JCalendar is one that I think you guys should use because it is quite a handy plugin, and it is there. So why couldn't I open it? Maybe it's not a plugin. It might be. Okay, let me figure this out while. Sorry. To show you, I was being silly. If you go palette and you go swing AWT components, you'll see there that under my swing controls, I had added their JCalendar, J library, or whatever. I'm going to untick those because those are all actually broken. So I'm actually going to remove this from my library because these ones aren't actually working properly. And what I'm going to do is in its place. Okay,
Add from jar.
I'm going to add from jar. And I'm going to add the one that I've got available on the shared drive, or you could download your own .jar ones that are available. And I'm going to add your JCalendar. Now, when you add your JCalendar, you'll see there's a whole bunch of different elements. You can add that to it. I'm going to select all of them, and then I'm going to go next. And you can choose which category to put it in. Personally, this one I prefer controls because they are controls, and I'll go finish. And you'll see that it'll add a whole bunch of them into my controls here. I hadn't finished going through and deleting the ones that weren't working, and I should do that, but I'm not going to do that in the video. Now you'll check here, and first thing first, I want my date to be on the left, and then I want the gender to be on the right. So I'm actually wanting this to be a grid layout, and on this grid layout, I'm wanting two columns with I want a 10 gap between them, and then inside those two columns, I'm going to put two panels as well. Now you'll notice there that it doesn't allow me to add the panel too nicely because it's adding the panel into the panel, in which case you use your navigator on the right hand side to allow it to separate better. So my first one is going to be this one, is going to be a border of a text titled layout, and on here I'm going to call it, this one is the date, DOB, date of birth. Okay, and in the DOB you'll see I can now put there JDateChooser. If I preview this frame, so far you see it's coming out, and you see when I take a picture, I can just pick the date because I added the calendar object into there. Obviously the frame is looking pretty ugly at the moment, but I haven't finished designing. I'm hoping at the end it will look a bit prettier. But then you can choose your dog, you can pick your date, and so forth. Does that make sense? And we'll working with these GUI elements later. Now, the next component that we've got after date of birth, this one here, I want to be, this was the gender. Now, gender is male or female, isn't it? Okay. Well, hopefully. Generally speaking, okay, so gender. Now, after we've got the gender, I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to show you how to use button groups. Well, first one we use with radio buttons. We're going to add two radio buttons there. So you're either going to be female or male. And in this case, I'm going to make it so I'm going to make sure set this layout to be grid layout again. And yeah, I think that's going to be fine like that. And then edit text male, edit text female. Now one thing you'll notice is when you preview your pane, you'll notice that I can tick both of them. Now you don't want that, do you? And the reason why is because we haven't given it a button group. And to give it a button group, you just literally drag and drop a button group onto anywhere on your frame, and you'll see it'll add a button group there. Now with this button group, you can name it. I would suggest, so I'm just going to call it GRP gender, so button group gender, and then I'll need to apply that button group to both buttons. So I select both of them, I say button group is GRP gender. And this will also allow you to have different buttons that are grouped together. So you could have another radio set of buttons where only one could be sorted from that group, only one could be sorted from that group. Does that make sense? So you group them together by button group, and now when I preview it, you'll see when I select male and I select female, it will switch which one is selected. So only one of those two can be selected. Do you guys get that? So button groups allow for that. Now after gender, we've got an element down here, which is my, what's the next thing here? It was weight. Okay, so now we want to weight. Now, weight could potentially be an issue because we now want decimal places, don't we? But we also want to limit the user. Now, you're checking your guys' PAT, your project files. It asks you, do you have error handling? Do you prevent the user from putting information which is incorrect? And this is a big thing on there, is I want to prevent the user from entering information that they should not enter. And the easiest way to do that is to limit what the user can enter. And one way of doing it is through what's called a spinner. Now, a spinner.
We've used them before.
Okay, we used them before, cool. You have what's called a model. Now, your model, you can say, I only want the user to be able to select from the spinner a number, and the data type in this case want to be float. I want the initial value to be 0. I don't want a minimum value, well, a minimum value of 0, you could say. And you can make the step size. For example, I could make the step size 0.1. So now what would happen is that when let me just preview it, you'll see when I click up, it goes up in 0.1, so 100 grams will go up. Does that make sense? And then it'll be a float that's working there. So far, so good, right? Now at the bottom part, we just want to be able to add a button to say add or exit, one or the other. So I'm just going to make this a set layout. I want to make it a flow layout. A flow layout just literally will, as you add stuff, it just flows. So I click on it, and defaultly it's center aligned. It's there. I personally don't like the looks of that in this case, so I'm just going to make it a grid layout, and that would work from there. It looks like I'm not going to finish this during this. So I'm going to have a clear button, and I'd have an add puppy button. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to finish this in this video, but I hope this has sort of gone through a little bit of GUI design with you guys. And you check, I think that looks pretty now. So they've got quite a pretty frame here, allows you to select dates, the gender, and so forth. Okay. So I think that goes through a little bit. We'll go through the rest tomorrow. Goodbye.